Okay, is it working? Again, I'm having trouble even with the mic. I wanted to wait to make this video to see if I could get the webcam to work again, but I can't. So today, remember if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Today I want to do what was the biggest culture shock for me this past time I was in Japan, right? This is going to be a long one, and it's going to be about I really felt that fake kindness of Japan this time, really. The other times I was in Japan, I said it sounds silly, right? But the culture shock for me was actually just how good cheap food was, actually. I was like, wow, cheap food is so good. Incredible quality for cheap food, right? And I'm sure you've heard about like the fake kindness before in Japan. Like I'm sure, I don't think it's like a secret, right? They say it's like very hard to make real friends in Japan, right? You know what I mean? Like people are very outwardly kind, but to make like a real friend, it's like actually difficult, right? And that's not to say that, customer service in general was amazing still this past time I was in Japan. Sans that awful customs things that happened with my fucking medication, which was absolutely terrible, right? But still, in general, you know what I mean? Customer service and many other things in Japan. I think there's a very sort of, compared to other countries and, people you talk to maybe from other cultures, there's a sort of high standard, a sort of like a normal standard of kindness, maybe day to day. It seems like it's nicer, right? But I really felt like I could see that, man, people really don't, even though there's a higher standard level of kindness, there's actually not that level of actually caring, really caring about somebody. And sorry if my chair is making noise. It's like squeaky or something. But there's like little, hints and scratches in that high level standard of kindness that I noticed that Japan really doesn't do, right? Like I didn't notice this the other times, but people don't hold doors open for anybody in Japan, right? Like to the extent like people will close the door on you, right? Like not just on me because I'm a foreigner or anything like that. You will see people close the door on girls, grandmas, old people, whatever, dude. Like I really noticed it, and maybe it's part of the culture, because it's kind of like the hive mind. You know what I mean? Like we're all in this together. You know what I mean? So your time is not more important than me, right? I shouldn't waste my time to help you open the door. You got to do your own shit, right? You know what I mean? Like the sort of ideology of Japan, that like a Moriarty and Gaman kind of thing, when you look at it at a deeper level, I really felt some of the actual obscurities this time, right? And I'm going to get into like some more deeper topics about like some of the sexual stuff that happened as well. But people don't hold or doors open for each other. They like literally like close the door like on a grandma. It was like I started like noticing it and I'm like, man, you just closed the door on the grandma? Really, dude? And that's not to say that everyone opens a door for people in America. Like I'm a door opener, right? To like probably a more extreme degree than other people, right? But people, man, it's almost I would say it's to the level of it seems rude and unfriendly how people shut the door on other people, basically, like literally. You could be like just literally like right next to the person. They won't even just put their palm out to hold it open for a few seconds. They don't do that, right? And I also noticed things like, you know what I mean? Like, man, I told the story. There's that one time, dude. This grandma was walking down the street, dude, and man, strong gust of wind would have fucking killed this grandma, dude. Probably could have blown her over the fucking bridge, right? Whatever the fuck. And I saw her walking, and I'm like, man, is no one gonna fucking help this grandma? Gotta fucking help the grandma. And there's this feeling too, right? Now, maybe there's probably a lot of sociopaths that watch me, right? I know I got a lot of weird fucking stalkers, right? But if you're not like a complete sociopath and not a complete fucking evil person, I would assume that you've probably tried to help somebody before or wanted to help somebody before. And do you ever know, like, when you want to help somebody, sometimes there's actually, you get a little bit scared before you help somebody. Like, should I help this person? Do I help this person? Do you know what I mean? You get maybe a little bit nervous or something like that. And, I saw this grandma and I'm like, oh, should I go ask this grandma? So, of course, there's that feeling inside of me, like, do I go and help her? And I'm like, no one's going to fucking help her. So, I went over And I tried to help her, and she's like, you know, whatever. And I'm like, like, 'cause you don't look too good, dude, right? Like, are you sure you're okay? You know what I mean? She's like, no, okay, but I'm like, okay. No, I notice things like that. Like, people don't help people in that kind of way. And I didn't notice little things too. And it's weird because I've talked about some of the really, there's random acts of kindness that I've seen that people do in Japan that I'm like, wow, you don't really see that in other countries. And then there's also random acts of kindness that you see in some countries that you just don't see in Japan at all as well. And you know, there was this other time, so I'm on the train and this guy, boom, passes out, knocked out. I don't see how he passed out, but I heard the thud and like right when it happened, right? How many people do you think on the train went to fucking help this guy, right? Four people, including me. Four people, including me. And two of the people were right there because he collapsed right in front of him and they like picked him up. Only one other person that was like far away from him besides me, you know, went to, you know, stood up and went to like the door to try to help him. And everyone else just watched. And it's not like the guy was like spazzing out or something or there was blood all over the place like that. It wasn't like a horrific scene or anything like that. But you know what I mean? I saw, you know, and of course my trip to Japan this time was much more negative, right? Like the other times I was in Japan, you know, I was surprised by what a good time I had despite not being a nerd, right? You know what I mean? You know, I guess I should say I'm a nerd, but not as nerdy as I used to be, right? Like, you know, even this time I didn't go to Japan to play any video games, didn't bring anything to play video games, anything like that. And you know, the other times I went to Japan, I'm like, man, maybe I'm just in Japan too late. Maybe I'm not gonna enjoy it because I'm not as much of a nerd as I am, as I used to be. I mean, but I had more fun than I thought it was going to. But this time, I was like, man, you know, this time it was not a good time. You know, I've told this, you know, I lost so much money from bad luck walking onto a train, pants ripping off, lost that necklace I've had since I was a kid. It was just terrible luck over and over, right? The customs thing, it was completely ridiculous. And so when you're in kind of a negative mindset, right, you start to notice things like that. Like I started people watching a little bit more, right? And I started noticing, you know, some of the fake insincerity. Like, you know, sometimes you see somebody and you can tell they're kind of fake. You know, you can see something. And I started having some conversations with a couple girls in particular. They, what's a good way? They kind of reeked sincerity, I guess you could say. You could see it in their eyes almost, right? And, you know, thinking about that thing on the train, I'm like, man, Japan is so kind in certain ways, but no one, four people, one including me, went to help this guy who just boom, knocked out on the train. Again, not a horrific scene. It was more disturbing cumulatively. Cumulatively, it was disturbing noticing things like that. And you know, you look around and you look on the train, and there was only one other guy that looked upset by it. Other people looked, you know, other people looked. Maybe there was a glimpse of concern by some. And you know, maybe a kind of idea of Japan of let me turn this down. That sort of ideology of you know, for better or worse, we all got our own thing. We're all in this together, whatever. You know what I mean? So your time is not important than my more important than mine, so to speak. But it really started to like bother me. And you know, I told some stories of what happened first. I think the story of God, did this happen first or second? Well, whatever happened first, you know, I told a couple stories of, let's say, you know, I was on the train and I asked if somebody was okay because they looked drunk. And because of those situations, I got into some sexual situations, right? But, you know, talking to them and you could see them, and it was bizarre to them almost that I asked if they were okay when they were on the train, right? Those situations would not have happened unless I asked if they were okay. And so I'm noticing all this like fake kind of kindness and the insincerity, right? And on a deeper level, it really started to bother me, right? And, I went back home with this one girl, and, we're about to have sex. And, man, I needed like a raw animalistic fuck, right? I needed it, dude, because, Japan had been going so bad. Like, I needed something, crazy, dude. I need some raw shit. And, I'm with this girl, and she's like so tiny. I'm like, man, baby, I can barely fit a fucking finger in you, dude. Serious? And I asked, I'm like, this is tight, and like joking about it with a friend. You're like, this is gonna be a wild one, man. Oh my god, like this is gonna be a wild one, dude. Fucking, this is gonna hurt. You better hold on, right, dude? This is gonna hurt, dude. It's gonna be a wild one, man. And I asked her, I'm like, this is gonna be your first time, isn't it? And she's like, no, but I do this very much, and it wasn't something so beta as, oh, can I kiss you or something like that. It wasn't anything like that. It was more so, and then I was just like, well, remember, in my broken Japanese. So she was speaking full Japanese, you know what I mean? I was speaking my broken Japanese. And I'm like, well, just remember, if you don't want to do anything, just let me know. And, then I was, going at it, right? And she's like, wait, what? And I'm like, what? And she's like, you mean if I don't want to do something, it's okay? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, what? And she's like, and then, basically, when you're having sex with a girl, I guess if you've ever had sex or whatever, you get really flushed and they get these like, the tears in the eyes, really flushed, Twitter pated kind of doe eyes. They start to get glossy. It went from like glossy, teary eyes, blushing, And this isn't to say that well, it was terrible, but it was fun to cuddle afterwards. I'm skipping ahead. Like there's still that, still that I guess that aspect is kind of nice, but you know, it went from those glossy eye tears to legitimate tears started coming down. And dude, she's like, she started coughing in my face, and she tried to block my face while she was coughing. And she's like, oh, yes, Essie, yes, Essie. And I'm like, oh, shit, dude. And, basically, she's just trying to kiss me. She's like, no one has ever asked in my entire life if I'm okay with something or not. And I was like, oh, God, dude. And, like, again, not just Twitter pated eyes, you know what I mean? Girls get that eyes if you ever seen it. I don't know if guys get that eyes. I'm not gay. But I think, can you visualize the fucking, the blushing in the eyes and when someone just totally is like a fucking lamb to cock slaughter, I guess. Like fucking take me now. But then actual like boogers. No, legitimate, yeah, boogers, boogery tears and everything. And I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. And, I started thinking about all these situations like, oh man, fuck. Because no one ever actually, maybe she just said that, right? Who knows? Girls lie all the time. People lie a lot, right? So, but it killed the boner, right? And I mean, she tried to suck me off a couple more times. And I'm like, oh, geez, fuck, dude. It's one thing to cry because, we're fucking like, oh, fuck, it feels so good. Oh, you're killing me, right? Which literally, like I said, barely fit a fucking finger in her fucking pussy, bro. But, I tried to take a shower with her after it, and and it wasn't like she was not attractive. I mean, she actually had, I would say I would actually say I was shocked at how nice of a body she actually had when she got naked, actually, to be honest with you. Very, very nice body. But it was like half boner. I'm like, I can't do it. And then, of course, she was probably insulted. And I know she was insulted because I tried to message her after and she didn't even read it. So I'm sure she blocked me because obviously it's very insulting. Like, oh my God, like I couldn't even get this guy hard, right? But, I was thinking about that and I messaged another guy. One girl was like, oh man, you destroyed her innocence. Like, why would you ever ask if she's okay or not? Obviously, if she went back to your house, she wants to fuck. And certainly that's happened before in America. I've gone over to girls' houses before. We're gonna fuck, and I ended up not doing it, which is not very manly of me because of one reason or another. Maybe I just wasn't feeling it, and that was probably my mistake as a man to go over and not actually be into it. To be honest with you, but you know, she's like, you destroyed her innocence. Why would you ever ask her that? You know what I mean? And like Japanese girls are so fucking submissive, dude. It's almost like basically a step away from like rape. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, it's like, man, like, I know if there's some kind of like role play, but really the first time, just me being like, hey, like it wasn't like like I said, it wasn't even like a beta thing. Like, oh, can I kiss you? It was just like, hey, just let me know if there's something you don't want to do. It was just like a simple kind of thing like that, and even that was too much. And I guess maybe from a certain perspective, you know what I mean. Certainly, I've been to Japan before. It's not the first fucking girl I've ever done anything with, you know what I mean, or talked to. You know what I mean? I've had many fucking conversations with people from all over the world, fuck, right? So, you know, it just really bothered me when I was thinking, like, man, no one has ever asked if you're okay or not before. And, I was just thinking about all this stuff. I thought, the guy on the train, I see people don't help other people. Again, there's a certain high standard of kindness in Japan that you don't see in other countries, for sure. But then there's like cracks. There's cracks in that standard level of kindness. So a higher standard level of kindness than other countries that I've seen from other countries and other people. And there's cracks while you're building that in certain aspects. But then even though there's that higher standard level of kindness, you see that just like every other country, people don't really care about each other. You know? And I've said before, when I went to Japan, I have not been doing good mentally lately, right? Like being sick for so long has really started. It's finally I'm starting to crack. You know what I mean? Being in the hospital all the time, constantly putting on a good face. You know what I mean? And I've said one of the strongest things about me is that I may complain. You know what I mean? But I get it out of my system, and then I go and do what I want to do. You know what I mean? I may complain, but I get it out of my system, force myself to work out, force myself to do something. You know what I mean? And so on some level, you see I'm surrounded by all these people in the hospital all the time, and that's motivation. Like I can't let myself die like that. I got to push myself. But even, I've said before that I'm starting to crack. Like I can't keep doing it. I'm so tired. You know what I mean, from all this health stuff. Excuse me. And I think about everything else in life, and it's like starting to beat me, right? And I was thinking, Japan, I think when you stereotype Japan in a certain way, you think of that, oh, Japan, people are so kind, they're so kind. And then you think, like, man, even Japan, am I too kind for Japan? Did you get what I'm saying? Because I think about those stories of me, I started thinking about, man, me hanging out with that homeless guy in the bathroom. And I've told those stories and they fucking bother me now, dude. I think about, man, I wasted so much of my life trying to help people, you know? People that had no idea what's actually going on in my life, that I'm actually the one that's sick, you know what I mean? And that actually, I say that not that they didn't have problems. I mean, I believe, I'm talking to homeless people, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that. I don't believe the guy was hanging out in the bathroom with me because he was not homeless, you know what I mean? But, I thought about that. I'm like, man, am I too nice even for Japan? Like that should have been a great bus. That should have been a fucking wild one. Fuck that girl the entire fucking night. That should have been amazing. But I was like, oh no. Like I should not. I should have been nice afterwards. And I was just thinking about all these things, right? And of course, then you got weird things that fuck with you because you're like, what about those girls on the train? If I didn't ask those girls on the train, I would have never been in that situation, right? Well, so basically, overall, you know what I mean? The biggest culture shock for me this time was, unlike last time where the fake kindness, I really liked it because I'm like, man, it's kind of nice just to be see someone be nice to somebody for no reason that doesn't really benefit them. This time, on the other hand, the fake kindness started to bother me because I saw the cracks in the fake kindness, and I had some conversations. I remember specifically with a couple girls, and they just fucking bled insincerity in their eyes while I was talking to them. It was like, this is not how you really feel. And I felt that, like, wow, you will never have a real conversation here kind of feeling, right? I remember one girl, man, just actually thinking about it now, it's almost like disgusting actually talking to her when I saw like the look in her face, and you could tell like, man, something is not right here. Nothing you're saying, it's very weird. Anyway, remember if you like the videos, like, subscribe.